Hey crew, it's Ben, and I'm back with some more Esoterica / Ancient Lore because this hits both of those boxes. We are going to be continuing our exploration of the secret of the golden flower. We are reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points that are brought to light by the text. It's not the format for everyone, but some people seem to find enjoyment in it, and so you are more than welcome to tag along. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in the terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above and in the box down below along with the source material so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I do the things that I do. I feel like I've explained those things there well enough, and I will refer you back to them several times through this process, but of particular note today almost certainly is going to be the Infinite Integrations playlist. This almost certainly will be a level of responsibility video, and if you are unaware of what that means, you should go back to the Infinite Integrations playlist, or at least begin this playlist for the Secret of the Golden Flower at the beginning so that you can get an understanding of what I mean by that. With all that being said, we are going to dive in and continue our exploration of The Secret of the Golden Flower, Chapter 4, Turning the Light Around and Tuning the Breathing. The doctrine just requires single-minded practice. One does not seek experiential proof, but experiential proof comes of itself. That is true. Right? You have to decide that you are going to do this. You have to be dedicated to it. You have to do it every day. It's best if you can do it every day at the same time so that you can get into the pattern of doing it. Right? I do prayer and meditation every single morning between 6 and 6:30 when I am walking my dogs. I do it other times during the day too, but that is not the pattern that I have set. The pattern that I have set is the first one. I do my breath work, I do my prayers, and I do my meditation. Now, fasting is not part of the walk, but sometimes when I am walking, I am fasting. So it is kind of. You need to set that. You have to be determined enough to do it. I can give you that. The only difference between the things that I can do and the things that other people want to do is the level of commitment. I am a little bit more committed than most people. I have taken the time to do the things, and so I have a little bit more experiential proof. On the whole, beginners suffer from two kinds of problems: oblivion and distraction. There is the device to get rid of them, which is simply to rest the mind on the breath. That is the entire point of the breathing, right? Yes, there is some beneficial things that you can do from controlled breathing exercises, but that is not the point of the breathing in meditation. The point of breathing in meditation, to count your breath, hold it for this particular period of time, let it go in this particular order, that is to distract your brain. Right? It is to keep you from thinking the other outside thoughts. It gives you this one specific thought that you can concentrate on. And then eventually, as you are going through the process, you will lose the conscious thought of the breath, right? When that goes away, don't think of anything else. Just try to maintain that blankness that is part of the process. The breath is one's own mind. One's own mind does the breathing. Once mind stirs, then there is energy. Energy is basically an emanation of the mind. That I do not agree with. It is not an emanation of the mind, although it can be controlled and directed by the mind. It is the surroundings, right? The energy does not come necessarily from you. It comes from the around, the oneness that is all things. So yes, you are a part of that, but you are not the generator of the energy. You are the director of the energy. Right? You are like the coach calling plays. You run the pattern this way and you run the pattern this way. You are not the person in the game doing the actual moving. That is the Holy Spirit. That is separate from you. And so I do disagree with that for the most part, right? Now, there is energy. Yes. You can control the energy. Yes. But it doesn't necessarily emanate from you. It does in part, but not all the way. Most of the energy that you should be using is external. When it talks about the light appearing in your mind, that's a real thing. That is external. That is not you. That is you accepting through your crown into your third eye and able to see the thing in your meditative state. That is what's happening there. That is the energy coming into you. And then you get to direct that energy up and down the column and where it needs to go into the outside. That is not you, right? Okay. Our thoughts are very rapid. A single random thought takes place in a moment, whereupon an exhalation and inhalation respond to it. Therefore, inward breathing and outward breathing accompany each other like sound and echo. In a single day, one breathes countless times, so has countless random thoughts. When the luminosity of spirit has leaked out completely, one is like a withered tree or dead ashes. So, should one have no thoughts? It is impossible to have no thoughts. Should one not breathe? It is impossible not to breathe for an extended period of time. Nothing compares to making the affliction itself into medicine, which means to have mind and breath rest on each other. Therefore, tuning the breath should be included in turning the light around. Breath exercises are important. There are various other types of breathing exercises, right? Not the ones where you're trying to get into a meditative state, but the ones where when you are in a meditative state, you are manipulating energy through it. Some of the Ram Haas stuff. That is a whole separate meditative practice than what I'm talking about with the unfolding of the light. They can be linked, right? But that is not the main goal. If you are not already doing this part, you don't need to worry about those other parts. All of that stuff, don't worry about that right now. Work on concentrating on breathe in, hold, breathe out. That is clearing the mind, that is focusing your center, that is trying to get you into alignment. Do it with your eyes closed. Breathe. Try to still the thoughts by focusing on the breaths. Later, when you are experienced in things, you can try all of the fancy breathing techniques. Get the basics down first, right? So turning the breath around should absolutely be included in turning the light around. You should be in control of your breathing, right? Not in total control. You will never be in total control, but you can affect things through the use of the things that you are given, and breath is one of those. This method makes use of two lights. One is the light of the ears, one is the light of the eyes. The light of the eyes means the external sun and moon, combining their lights. That is light and dark, right? Two parts. The light of the ears means the internal sun and moon, combining their vitalities. However, vitality is congealed and stabilized light. They have the same source but differing names. Therefore, clarity of hearing and seeing are both one and the same spiritual light. That is what I was just, like I was about to stop it and hit that. It is the same light, right? The method of control of it is different, right? When it's talking about the light of the eyes here, that is means when your eyes are open, right? That is the external field of actual solar radiation that you actually see in actual reality. When you close your eyes, it's the same light, but you're not seeing the source of that light, right? You are seeing the electromagnetics of that light. That's what you see when you close your eyes. You're not seeing the actual visions and the actual light and the actual reflections. You are seeing the electromagnetic harmonics of the light. Learning to recognize that, right, the electromagnetics and how to manipulate them is part of it. And you have to use both, right? There is a bright one and a dark one, right? There is the grounding black, right? That is the color is associated with it, and that's the color that I see, right? The black grounding feminine energy. That is where you give the energy away. You can draw upon it, right? That you can draw upon the negative, and it's not negative in the positive and negative spin on things type of thing, but it is the emanations, right? And then you have the positive light at the top, which is white and penetrative. Those are, you can meld those, and that's what it's talking about here. Vitality congealed and stabilized, that's what it's talking about. Finding the balance between the light and the dark. You're not supposed to partake entirely of the light. You're not supposed to partake entirely of the grounding. You were supposed to mix the two. Find the perfect blend of the two, not into gray, but into black and white, separate, like a checkerboard pattern that surrounds you. That is what it's talking about here. It is the same light, right? The energy invested is the exact same. The way that you perceive it is the difference. Now, I don't know that I would have hit it with ears, but if you remember, your third eye is intricately connected to that. It runs from between your eyes to the V in the back of your neck, or the back of your head, right where your skull comes down and then it loops under. Draw that line, and then you draw the line from just in front of the ears, behind the temples, this little spot right here. So it is tied into your ear. That is the pineal gland. That is the third eye. That is where the energy is coming into your divine, and that is where you see it when you were in the meditation, right? That is where you were seeing it, inside your mind. You can take that energy and project, right? For me, the way that this has worked is I take the grounding energy and I run it all the way up, and then I project it through the third eye while taking the energy, the information coming from the crown, and inserting it into the third eye. These two combined together is like I can't remember what it's called now, but it had the little wheel, the something scope. Anyway, you could look through it and you could see, right? It had a little wheel and you click the thing and the wheel turns and you could see a different scene. That's the same thing that's happening. I'm inserting the round thing and I'm shooting the light through it, and that allows me to see. That's how I do it. This may not be the way that you do it, but that is how it works for me. When you sit, lower your eyelids and then establish a point of reference. Now, let go. But if you let go absolutely, you may not be able to simultaneously keep your mind on listening to your breathing. That is pretty close to true, right? You find the point of focus. Now, what I do is I withdraw. That sounds a little bit weird, I understand, but if you remember several decades ago, there was a craze that swept the nation. Everybody wanted to see 3D images. And there are two ways of determining what that 3D image is. The first way is you put it up to your nose and then you slowly back it away, and then suddenly your eyes will refocus. When your eyes refocus, that leaps out at you and you're like, oh, there's the 3D image. For some of us, me, I didn't do this, right? I could look at it like this and I could relax my eyes and withdraw just a little bit into my mind. Now, at that point in time, I had no frame of reference for what I was doing, but that is what I was doing. I was retreating my consciousness from my eyes to my third eye. And through that retreating back in my consciousness from the forward to the middle, I was able to unfocus my eyes and see the 3D image without having to put it to my nose. That's the same thing that I do in meditation. I close my eyes, I get my breathing right, I find the point of reference, and then I draw myself back into myself and let my eyes relax. And that is how I can see, control, and manipulate the light. The breathing for me is not really necessary anymore, right? It is to a certain degree, it always will be, but like I don't have to sit down and focus on my breathing in order to enter a meditative state. I can literally sit right here, retreat into my mind, and get into the state like that. I could do it right now. I'm not going to because it's boring, right? You would see nothing but me just sitting here for 30 minutes. But that is something I can do, and I can do it with my eyes closed or my eyes open. That is how I see the subtle field, right? The subtle field is the biomechanical electricity that surrounds you. It surrounds everything, animate and inanimate. But you can see it, and to a small degree, you can manipulate it. I do not suggest doing that unless you understand fully the 8 laws of creation. There are very few instances where you should be changing the electromagnetics of anything outside of yourself. It is something to be very careful about. You should not allow your breathing to actually be audible. Just listen to its soundlessness. Once there is sound, you are buoyed by the coarse and do not enter the fine. Then Be patient and lighten up a little. The more you go, the greater the subtlety, and the greater the subtlety, the deeper the quietude. That is true, right? When you first discover the light through the meditative practices, it's going to be wild. It's overbearing. It's overpowerful. When you've got your eyes closed, sitting in a dark room, and then suddenly there is a light so bright that it is painful. That happened. It happened to me. It may not happen to you, but it happened to me. When I first started meditating, I did it in the dark. Now I do it in the sunlight, right? I turn my back to the sun, so it's not like the overpowering sunlight, and I'm next to the trees and the shade, and I've got my feet in the bare dirt, as long as it's not freezing or soaking wet. And so it's a different experience now than it was then, but in the darkness, completely dark, eyes closed, breathing, concentrating on the breathing, there is this light that is so bright it is like staring into the sun. It is painful until you start letting go and controlling it at the same time. Sounds a little bit weird. I understand that. It is a hard thing to explain. That's why we're going through this. You can take a small measure of control of that light. It will take you some time. You are not going to master this in a day, and if you think you have not. Right? It takes a long time to get here. Don't try to rush it. Try to take your time. Try to step through all of the steps fully. Understand all of the steps completely. But by the relaxing of the mind, I can take that light and shape it. Now, for a long time, right, like up until the last week, I was not able to change the color of the light or anything of that nature. The only thing that I could do was clear the screen. For me, I have aphantasia. I cannot willfully close my eyes and envision anything but a gray field. That gray field with this white light, I was able to control. So it wasn't just like swirling anymore. I can make it where it was even all the way across. I had to do that for each one of the different chakras coming up and concentrate on the thing that was holding me back in each of those so that I could learn how to expand myself in those. Now it's different. Now I can do something different, right? I can get into my meditative state, take control of the light, and then I can change the light to different colors. That is new to me, but it is something most people can do just naturally, right? That's a superpower. Controlling that field is an important thing, but you have to be sure that you are not creating the image that you want, but rather you are allowing the image that would form. You shouldn't at first be seeing things. You should only be seeing the light. If you are seeing things, then you're probably trying to direct the thing, right? The light. You are meant to move the light, clear the light, direct the light. Learn to work with the light before you try to work with any imagery. It is entirely possible to do all of this with no imagery. I'm pretty sure that's why I had aphantasia. I am healing that through this process. I am getting to the point where I am able to see things because of doing this. This is a new experience for me, so. Eventually, after a long time, all of a sudden even, the subtle will be interrupted and the true breathing will appear, whereupon the substance of mind will become perceptible. That we were just talking about as the light. This is because when mind is subtle, breath is subtle. When mind is unified, it moves energy. When breath is subtle, mind is subtle. When energy is unified, it moves mind. Stabilization of mind must be preceded by development of energy because the mind has no place to set to work on. So focus on energy is used as a starting point. This is what is called the preservation of pure energy. That's what I'm talking about. You shouldn't be trying to imagine direct into imagery at all. Just deal with the light first. If you are dealing with the light first and getting control and manipulation of the light under control, all the rest of it is going to fall into place on its own. You will have some agency in it, don't get me wrong. But for the most part, it will be a natural, instinctive thing. That's how it was for me. I have to assume it will be that way for you. You don't understand the meaning of the word movement. Movement is pulling the strings. The word movement is another word for control. Since you can cause movement by vigorous action, how could you not be able to cause stillness by pure quietude? That is clearing the screen that I was just talking about, right? It is the passive control rather than the active control. It is the allow the light to be manipulated and not move it into imagery. That's what's being said here in a different way. The great sages saw the interrelation of the mind and energy and skillfully set up an expedient for the benefit of people of later times. An alchemical text says, "The hen embraces the egg," always mentally listening. These are the finest instructions. The way a hen can give life to an egg is through warm energy. Warm energy can only warm the shell and cannot penetrate the inside, so she mentally conducts the energy inward. That listening is single-minded concentration. When the mind enters, the energy enters. With warm energy, the birth takes place. This is not true. The energy is transferred whether or not the chicken is consciously listening. I know, it's a little bit of an allegory, so it's got a little bit of leeway, but that is not how the mechanics of raising chickens is. It's not how they were given birth, right? Your chicken is not directing energy into it. They're just sitting on it, and so in a way it is, but it is not a conscious, skillful crafting of something. You are going to be crafting something, right? You are going to be directing energy. Yes, it will be internally. Yes, it will not have external effects for a long time, right? But you are literally doing that. You are consciously deciding to take this energy and to manipulate it into the form that you want to see it in, whether that's clearing the screen or later imagery. Either way, you are consciously directing this energy. It is not like a chicken sitting on an egg. Therefore, even though the mother hen goes out from time to time, she is always listening, and the concentration of her spirit is never interrupted. Since the concentration of the spirit is never interrupted, when the warm energy is also uninterrupted day and night, so the spirit comes alive. I call this walking with the oneness, right? Meditation is a thing. You need to sit down, you need to take your time, schedule it out, do the practices. Walking with the oneness is a separation from that. Yes, it is a meditative state, right? It is you, me, retreating back while I'm doing dishes, while I am folding clothes, while I am mopping and sweeping my floors. I'm the homemaker, if you didn't know. All of these things you can do without your mind actively engaged, and you can actively engage it in something else, or you can engage it into meditation. Meditation does not always mean just sitting around going on, right? Meditation is a practice of allowing God to talk to you. You say your prayers and then you listen for Him to return them. Walking in the oneness is that. It is clearing the mind despite whatever physical activity you may be doing. I do it when I'm walking the dogs, right? I'm not sitting around meditating going on. I do that, but it is different. The meditative practice of walking in the oneness is more effective, in my opinion, for allowing the spirit to do what it needs to do. You will more than likely, if you are an artist of any shape, right, you write, you make art, you make music, whatever it is, chances are when you get stuck, you walk. And you allow your subconscious mind to kick around ideas without really concentrating on them. Walking in the oneness is much the same. It is walking without the conscious thought in your mind and allowing the instinct to take over and God to talk to you. It gives you something to focus on, much like breath, instead of your thoughts. So you can focus on taking one step after another. You can focus on what's going on around you by retreating into your mind and seeing the subtle fields. That's how it works for me, right? The walking with the oneness I can do whether I'm doing dishes or whatever. As long as I am not actively engaged in something else, I can do that. I assume that you can do that too, right? I don't assume that I am special at all. I assume that I do spend the time to do these things, and that is why they work for me. I assume that if you do the same thing, if you spend the time in prayer, fasting, and meditation, you can too. And that goes for every single person on the planet, no matter how you are aligned, right? You should be aligning for the greater good. You should be aligning for what is best for humanity. You should be aligning yourself with God's will, and those all three are the same thing. The life of the spirit comes from the prior death of the mind. If people can kill the mind, the original comes alive. That is quieting, not actually literally killing anything. Killing the mind does not mean quietism. It means undivided concentration. Buddha said, place the mind on one point and everything can be undone. Right? We just talked about that. Focusing on retreating within your mind, but allowing your body to do the thing, right? That is undivided concentration. There is the meditative state where you can give the full undivided concentration. And that is separate from what I'm talking about with the oneness. Like, you cannot walk down the street and have 100% unmindfulness. You will get run over by a car. You will get attacked by a dog, or something will come along, right? You have to be aware of the outside, but that doesn't mean that your mind has to be actively engaged in it. So undivided concentration is a little bit, the quietism is actually a little bit closer, right? I know this says it does not mean quietism, but it kind of does. It kind of does mean letting the thoughts free flow through, so that you are not the originator of those thoughts. If the mind tends to run off, then unify it by means of the breath. And if the breath tends to become rough, then use the mind to make it fine. If you do this, how can the mind fail to stabilize? Generally speaking, the two afflictions of oblivion and distraction just require quieting practice to continue unbroken day after day until complete cessation and rest occur spontaneously. When you are not sitting quietly, you may be distracted without knowing it. But once you are aware of it, distraction itself becomes a mechanism for getting rid of distraction. That is true, right? This is a hard one to explain, but the distractions can lead you to getting rid of the distractions. But it is through the same processes that the breath does. So you should be focusing on the breath instead of trying to master this, right? If you can, that's great. It's hard in the beginning to do that. The distractions come, and if you focus on them instead of focusing on your breath, it pulls you out of the meditative state. You're unpracticed with it. But once you have practiced with it for a while, these distractions become less of distractions. They become the focal points for a reason, right? There is a reason why, if you are in a meditative practice and you hear this sound over here, all of a sudden your mind is pulled to that sound. It is indicating something. There is something there for you to unravel. I do not recommend that you focus on that to begin with. Not until you are well into manipulating the energy, clearing the fields, aligning the lights, making sure the rotations are correct, right? Until you are sure about those internal things, don't worry about them distractions. If you're getting distracted, it's just part of the process. You have to learn how to overcome that. As for unawares oblivion and oblivion by which you become aware, there is an inconceivable distance between them. Unawares oblivion is real oblivion. Oblivion that you notice is not completely oblivious. Clear light is in this. Unawares oblivion is the point of falling asleep. Right? That is where the separation really occurs in meditative practices. There comes a point when you are doing your breathing exercises and you're focusing your mind and you're withdrawn back, that you're going to be tempted to pass out. You're going to be tempted to go to sleep and not be aware of the things around you. That is not really the point of it. You should be aware that there are things around you. There is a point where you can grab control of that process. The falling asleep and remaining awake is a mechanic that you can use, right? There is a subtlety in that snapping point between the asleep and the awake where you can be clear, unfocused, and focused at the same time. You're aware of all the rustlings of the leaves, of the wind blowing through the trees, but they don't affect you. You're aware of the traffic passing by on the roadway, but it doesn't affect you. But you're still aware that it's there. You just choose to not be affected by it. That is part of the process. If you are getting to the point where you do not hear the wind rustling through the leaves and the car passing down the road, then you've probably gone too far into the unaware oblivion. The aware oblivion is aware of all of the things happening around you, but you are disconnected from them. You are literally not really feeling your body. You can still feel the wind, but it's like something happening to someone else. You are disconnected from it. You're aware of it, but you are disconnected from it. That is aware oblivion. And that's what it's talking about here. Oblivion that you notice is not completely oblivious. Clear light is in this, right? When you get to that point, that snapping point where you make the decision, I am staying awake but unaware, and you can rest in that, that's when that light comes. That's when you start really being able to do the things. Distraction means the spirit is racing. Oblivion means the spirit is unclear. Distraction is easy to cure. Oblivion is hard to heal. Using the metaphor of illness, one that involves pain or itch can be treated with medicine, but oblivion is a symptom of paralysis, where there is no feeling. I think we just talked about that well enough. A distracted mind can be concentrated, and a confused mind can be set in order, but oblivion is unformed darkness, in contrast to distinction, which still has some direction. Right? You're not meant to be unconsciously oblivious. Oblivion means the lower soul is in complete control, whereas the lower soul is a lingering presence in distraction. Oblivion is ruled by pure darkness and negativity. When you are sitting quietly, if you become drowsy, this is oblivion. Repelling oblivion is simply a matter of tuning the breath. The breath in this case is respiration, not the true breathing. Nevertheless, the true breathing is present within it. Whenever you sit, you should quiet your mind and unify your energy. How is the mind quieted? The mechanism is in the breathing, but the mind alone knows you are breathing out and in. Do not let the ears hear. When you don't hear it, the breathing is fine, and when the breathing is fine, the mind is clear. If you can hear it, the breathing is rough, which means the mind is cloudy. Cloudiness means oblivion. So it is natural to feel sleepy. Even so, the mind should be kept on the breathing. That is fairly self-explanatory, right? If you're feeling the distractions, they're piling on, then take yourself back to the breathing exercises and begin again, right? Reset, resettle, withdraw, right? It is a process. It is a marathon, not a sprint. It will take a long time to master this. I am sure there's somebody out there that can sit down and start mastering right away, but I've never met them. I doubt I ever will. I am sure there is some guru out there that can do it, but it is not the normal human condition, and it is probably not you, right? It was definitely not me, but it is probably not you. Take the time to master the fundamentals before you start doing the heavy lifting. It is also essential to understand that this device is not mechanical or forced. Just maintain a subtle looking and listening. What is looking? It is the light of the eyes spontaneously shining. The eyes only looking inward and not outward. Not looking outward yet, being alert, is inward looking. It is not that there really is such a thing as looking inward. The retreating, right? When I talk about the withdrawal within myself, that is the looking inward that they're describing here. And it is both true and untrue that you cannot look inward, right? You can literally turn your eyes and look into the skull. But there is a looking inward that you can do when you are in your meditative practice with your eyes closed. Now, it's a little bit harder with your eyes open because you can see all of the things, right? But with your eyes closed, it is easy to withdraw within yourself. It is easy to move that awareness. I say easy, but it's easy with practice. You can move the awareness up and down the stack. That is looking inward. That is a very real thing. But it's not like your eyes are rolling back and you're actually looking into your skull, right? You are using the other faculties for that. Your eyes emit light. They do absorb the light, but they emit light. And that light that you emit interacts with the light that you see. That is what helps to form your reality. What I see and what you see may be slightly different. We may see this color as two different colors. I may see it as blue, but what I recognize as blue, you might recognize as green. But you have spent your entire life calling it blue, so to you it is blue and not green. That is the subtleties and difference between sight that we can never clarify. You can look inward, but it is a metaphysical thing, not necessarily a physical thing. What is listening? It is the light of the ears spontaneously listening. The ears only listening inward and not outward. Not listening outward, yet being alert is inward listening. It is not that there really is such a thing as listening inward. And I'm going to give the exact same thing for this as I did that. Listening means listening to the soundless. Looking means looking at the formless. When the eyes do not look outside and the ears do not listen outside, they are closed in and have a tendency to race around inside. Only by inward looking and listening can you prevent the inner racing as well as oblivion in between. This is the meaning of sun and moon combining their vitalities and lights. When you sink into oblivion and become drowsy, get up and take a walk. When your spirit has cleared, sit again. It is best to sit for a while in the early morning when you have free time. After noontime, when there are many things to do, it's easy to fall into oblivion. Also, there's no need to fix the length of time of meditation. It is only essential to set aside all involvements and sit quietly for a while. Eventually, you will attain absorption and not become oblivious or sleepy. And again, this is true, right? You do have the point of oblivion, of wanting to fall asleep in the middle of it. I don't know that I recommend that you get up and walk around. I understand why they're saying that, but that is part of the process. The being able to recognize I am about to fall asleep, I need to focus, is part of the process. Whenever you find yourself about to drift in and out, that is the time to claim it. That is the time to say, okay, I am in this. I am going to direct things. I am going to take control of things. That is the point of becoming aware of the unaware. That is the point when the subtle energies appear. That is the point when you are able to manipulate the light. That is the point of doing this. And so if you get up and take a walk, you're kind of interrupting the process. It may work. I have never done that, right? I have focused myself upon grabbing the control. And by grabbing, it is a very subtle thing, too. It is not like some, right? It is a, okay, we've got this. Now let's hold on to it. And to maintain that spot just above sleep, that's the point of the meditation, right? It is clear mind. It is retreated into. It is accepting the information. That is meditation. All right, what's up next? Section 5, Errors in Turning the Light Around. Even though your practice gradually matures, there are many pitfalls in front of the cliff of withered trees. This makes it necessary to elucidate the experiences involved in detail. Only when you have personally gotten this far do you know how I can talk of it now. Our school is not the same as Chan study in that we have step-by-step evidences of efficacy. Let us first talk about points of distinction, then about evidences of efficacy. When you are going to practice this doctrine, first see to it somehow that you don't have much on your mind, so that you can be alive and free. Make your mood gentle and your mind comfortable. Then enter into quietude. When you are quiet, it is then essential to find potential and find its opening. Don't sit inside nothingness or indifference, so-called neutral voidness. That is the taking control of the light, right? If you are sitting inside of nothingness or indifference, you are just allowing things to happen. You are not trying to control or manipulate the light. Controlling and manipulating the light is part of it. That is really taking you out of the meditative practice and more into prayer at that point, right? Prayer is the active involvement. Meditation is the not involvement. There is a reason for both of those, and it is part of the process. Like in my meditative practices, it begins with prayer. It goes into meditation, and then it goes into the moving of the light. That is more of a step back into prayer. I am trying to focus this light into the direction which I wish it to go, is more of a prayer. God grant this thing to happen. Than it is a trying to force it or anything of that nature. It is essential to find the potential and find its opening. You can sit in quietude all day. You can sit in nothingness and indifference on top of a mountain and ponder nothing. Or you can learn to manipulate the energies. You can't do both. There is a point in the process where you have to do both. But you can't just stay in the quietude or nothing is going to happen. You have to develop the mental fortitude to actually channel the energies. Now, I'm an empath. The manipulation of these energies probably come a little bit more natural to me than it does to other people. I don't also consider myself an empath in the way that you see on TikTok, right? I can literally take energies from people. I can cleanse them. I can ground other people. I can stop things. I have done this. It is not something that I practice regularly because you are not meant to interfere with other people's energies for a large part. There is very few exceptions to that. If you are a spirit healer, which I am, then consent is a big, big part of it. You are not meant to take someone's energy and manipulate it without their knowledge at any point in time. When I give somebody an empath hug and I take their energy from them, it is because they are allowing me to do that. It is something, even if they haven't given the literal consent to, it is a process by which the physical touch is a major part of it. And all I am doing is quieting their energy. I am taking the excess and grounding it. I am not inserting any energies. All right, like unless you have specifically, like that is the major consent, right? If you are grounding someone's excess energy, it doesn't require the consent in the same way that giving someone energy is, the same way that altering their energy would be. Taking the excess and grounding it is a different process, and I can't really explain that in the terminology, right? I don't have the terminology for that yet, but there is a difference. If someone is in a deep state of grief, I can calm that. If someone is in a deep state of pain, I can calm that. But I don't try, most of the time, I don't try healing on other people, right? I'm not trying to give you energy. I am accepting your energy. I am taking the things that you are offering and I am clearing them. I am in a constant state of grounding. That doesn't mean that I'm walking in the grass all the time. I do that, but that is not necessarily grounding. Grounding is a conscious effort to cleanse the energy. You can do that standing on concrete. You can do that 15 floors in the air. You are using the same process as putting your feet in the ground. It is a guiding of these energies down and dispersing into the ground. It is something I do. I assume that there are other people that do it, once again, but I don't know other people that do it. And like, it's something that other people have noticed, right? It's not like just in my mind. When I walk into a room, it is a noticeable thing. And it's not because I'm pretty, right? It is because I emanate peace and calmness. I emanate love and harmony. Almost all of the time. I have my distractions, like my neighbor next door is definitely a distraction, and it is one of my trials, right? It is a lesson for me. But when I take the energy, it is something people notice. When I ground them, it is something they notice. It is something people have remarked on to other people. Man, Pid really makes me feel calm. Pid really takes, like, it's something other people have said. Right? It is not just in my mind. It can be in my mind, but it is not just in my mind. Even as you let go of all objects, you are alert and self-possessed. That is true. But don't get enthusiastic about attaining the experience. Also true. This easily happens whenever reality is taken too seriously. That means not that you shouldn't recognize reality, but that the rhythm of reality is on the brink of existence and non-existence. You can get it by intent that is not willful. Yes, right? If you are focused too hard on the experience, then the experience will elude you. It is part of the letting go process that you have to let the experience overtake you. You can, through practice, take more control of that. But if you are focused entirely on that, it's not going to happen for you. You have to be focused on the relaxation, the retreat inside, the focus on the breath and what that means, the understanding of the external not affecting the internal, and the internal not affecting the external. It is the attentive unconsciousness, right? You can get it by intent that is not willful. It's a very real thing, right? You shouldn't, not that you shouldn't recognize reality, but that the rhythm of reality is on the brink of existence and non-existence. Reality is true. There are rules by which we are incorporated, but you have access to more. That more is the non-existence. It is the non-reality. When I was taken out of my body, that's where I was in the non-existence, right? It was the return to source in a way. Not the final return to source, although I did have several questions answered. It is the awareness of the non-existence, but not the overwhelming desire to be part of the non-existence. And you can get it by intent that is not willful. There are traps, right? You can be trapped into doing things with your energy, thinking that it is the correct thing. If you have not taken the time, that's why I tell you so many times to take the time. Step by step. Go through the entire stack. Spend a week on just your base. Every day, just your base. And then every day, just your sacral. Then every day, just your solar plexus. For weeks. To make sure that you have mastery over these areas, because you can get, by intent that is not willful, things that will harm you. That comes from the overexuberance, the enthusiasm about attaining the experience. Yes, it is exciting when these things happen. Once you recognize what it is that's happening, it is an exciting thing. It exhilarates you. Don't be overexcited. That leads to you trying to do things that you're not ready for. If you're trying to control the energies and you're not ready to control the energies, you are almost certainly going to feel repercussions from it. And that's going to discourage you, right? You feel these things, you've not taken the advice, and you've not gone through the 8 laws of creation, and you've not sat in your auras and made sure that your chakras were right, and make sure that your alignment is where it needs to be. And then you do something. You're like, I'm going to manifest this thing, and it works. It happens. It's going to happen. But then the other side of it's going to hurt you, right? You're going to wind up with a physical ailment. You're going to wind up losing everything that you own. Those things happen. Take the time to be careful. Understand the karmic implications of what you are doing. You are meant to work with these energies, but you're meant to do it responsibly. You're meant to do it with gravity, right? Not the gravity of, this is a horrible thing, or I am important because of it. But it is something that you should take seriously. Not too seriously, but seriously. Even in the midst of alert awareness, you are relaxed and natural. But don't fall into the elements of the body and mind, where material and psychological illusions take charge. If you tend to fall into a deadness whenever you go into meditation and are relatively lacking in growth and creative energy, this means you have fallen into a shadow world. Yes, your mood is cold, your breath sinking, and you have a number of other chilling and withering experiences. If you continue this way for a long time, you will degenerate into a blockhead or a rockhead. This, almost everybody who is out there practicing is doing this. They think that this is the actual attainment, right? This is your people being chased to the point of exception, right? It is not for you to go around trying to have sexual activities with everybody that you see. But you are meant to have sexual activities. That's why it was given to us. The balance between those is where you're supposed to strike. It is the same for all the virtues and the vices, but this one is a visceral one, so you'll understand it a little bit better. Finding that balance can mean temporary exclusion, but it's not meant to be full exclusion. It is the same here, right? You are meant to feel your emotions. You are not meant to be excluded from the emotions. You are not meant to be never angry. You are not meant to be never sad. You are not meant to be never hopeless, right? Those feelings are real. They are there for a reason. They are there to indicate to you something is not correct in this current situation. There is something here that I need to remedy. It can be excluding someone from your life. It can be including someone in your life. It can be finding new practices to do. It can be a myriad of things. But you are not meant to exclude the things simply because they are. You're not meant to exclude anger. You're meant to control your anger. Anger has a use. Even wrath has a use, right? The correction of things sometimes requires physicality. Sometimes prayer and meditation is not enough. Sometimes it takes 10 tens handling things. That is not cold. That is a fiery thing. You're meant to feel jealousy. That doesn't mean you're meant to be jealous all of the time, but if someone has got some ill intent towards your mate, then you're supposed to feel that. You're supposed to express it in a healthy manner. You're not supposed to get controlling. You're not supposed to get violent in that situation. You're meant to express that you have this concern. You're meant to talk about that with your partner and work it out. You are not meant to exclude the life that you have been given from your life. You have been given these things for a reason. All of them serve a purpose. If you tend to fall into a deadness whenever you go into meditation and are relatively lacking in growth and creative energy, you have fallen into a shadow world. That is true. Even if you're a monk and you're excluding all things, you are doing this. You are meant to find the balance in your life. Everything in your life is meant to be balanced. Your checkbook, your relationships, everything. Take the time to do so. Feel the emotions. I know it's not always acceptable for a man to cry, right? You feel sadness and it's not acceptable at this moment to cry. Then when you get home, take the time to do so. Let that sadness out before it poisons you. Let your happiness out before it poisons you. You don't have to be a stoic. Stoicism is not the way. It is finding this shadow world. It is falling into a shadow world. Removing yourself from emotion is falling into a shadow world. It is going to lead you to despondency. You will become a blockhead or a rockhead. It is a guarantee. Removing yourself entirely from emotion will do that. If your mood is cold, your breath sinking, and you have another of other chilling and withering experiences. And yet, it will not do to go along with all conditions. Balance. Once you have gone into quietude and all sorts of loose ends come to you for no apparent reason, you find you cannot turn them away even if you want to. And and you even feel comfortable going along with them. This is called the master becoming the servant. If this goes on long, you fall into the various roads of the realms and forms of desire. That ties directly into what we were just talking about, right? If there are things that you need to deal with, you need to deal with them, not to try and seek peace and solace in meditation, right? If you are angry, there is a reason there is anger. If you are wrathful, there is a reason for it. If you are lustful, there's a reason for it. You are meant to feel these emotions and to deal with them. If you go into meditation and all of these loose ends are coming to you, that means that you have to deal with them. It doesn't mean that you get to exclude them. When Jesus said, when you go to pray and you remember that you have something against your brother, to go and correct that, that is this paragraph right here. It's the same thing. You will literally manifest the wrong things if you have not done that. If you have not dealt with the anger and the jealousy and the lust and the wrath and the greed and all of the things on both sides of that particular equation, the virtues and the vices, then you are going to manifest the wrong thing. It will be unintentional and you will get scared and it will make you not want to do this anymore. It's not because of the thing, like what you're doing. It is because you haven't taken the time to deal with the issues that need to be dealt with before you do these things. Once you know this, you can seek experiential proofs. We are going to go ahead and wrap this one up because we are getting to an hour and I like to keep them digestible. We will be back with authenticating experiences and turning the lights around. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to some series of somewhat difficult topics. I am merely trying to clarify the things I know with the things that are recorded. And for a large part, I am in almost complete accordance with this, right? There's not a whole lot for me to take exception from so far. I understand what they're talking about. I am trying to relay to you another way of looking at it in the same thing, right? The taking in of the light and clearing of the fields. I have a slightly different terminology than they do, and so I'm relaying the terminology that I have. There's not really any major doctrinal disqualifications, right? Like when I went through the Bible study and there were things that were directly contradictory within the Bible, like within the same chapter of itself, that was a problem, and we had to point that out. When we talked about the hypocrisies and the things that were not correct, that was something that had to be pointed out. I don't have a whole lot of those here. This is mostly correct, right? I have talked about the things that I feel were not quite correct. I have tried to explain a different viewpoint because I really believe that for the most part, our disagreements in this document and myself are a point of view, right? I am looking at it through my experiential lens, and they wrote it according to their experiential lens. Well, there's been at least 400 years between those two things. I have different things available at my fingertips than they did then, right? The things that they did, they were experiencing and writing it down and trying to figure it out and explain it in a way that was clear. It's the same thing that I'm trying to do. I have had this experience. I do these practices. I have affected change in my life, And I am only trying to relay how I have done that. So far, I am not disappointed in what we are talking about here. I think that there is more. I don't know how to get into it, right? The reason we're doing this is because it is easier for me to talk about these things if I have a point of reference to talk about. Whether it is correct or incorrect, it gives me something to frame around. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to explain it as clearly as I can to the functional ability that I hold. There may be things that I don't understand. Please take that into consideration. But when I talk about taking the time, I mean that. I mean that fully with my whole chest. Don't rush. You're going to want to. You almost certainly will. It will hurt you, and I don't want that to happen. I'm not trying to restrict you from anything. I am giving you this information freely for a reason. I want everybody to onboard this. It's not going to happen, but I want that. I wish that everybody would take this information and run with it. It doesn't have to be attributed to me, right? I'm not trying to start something based on me. I'm trying to start something that is older than I am by a lot of time, right? Thousands of years, not just 400. These things are recorded in various other places throughout history. We are touching on those as much as I am possible. If you have some more source material that I can dig into in the same way that I'm doing that, leave it down below. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, share, and a sub. Throw me a comment. Let me know if you agree or disagree. If it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. And if you really like what I'm doing over here, hit me with that super thanks. I am not manifesting money. I understand that I have some unconventional beliefs and that I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those beliefs. It is not intentional, but I am not apologetic for it. It is something that I am merely here to do. I am fulfilling my mission to dispense information, and that is all I have concern for. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt State. Peace.